Hi there. I know I'm not Mr. Floor. I know it's crazy. Um, but it's a reading quiz day. If I think about what we've done in the last month with the We the People project, it's been a lot of reading, reading for your own purposes, for your article, for your topic, researching your follow-up questions, practicing them, talking. But again, what you have to get better at is answering questions based on an article that you've read. I'm graded on that. The NWEA grades you on that. So it's a 5-point reading quiz. The first 4 questions on the test will be about this article, and the next 2 will actually be about the function of a president, because this week we want you to learn about George Washington and how he influenced the presidency. So, with that being said, let's get to the article. It's about a situation that happened during Washington's presidency. It is called the Whiskey Rebellion. Yes, the Whiskey Rebellion. It happened in 1794, and I know you should have a note sheet there that should help you at least think about this event in more than just, hey, I got to get better at reading and all that. So here we go. The Whiskey Rebellion of 1794. It all started with a tax, what came to be known as the Whiskey Rebellion of 1794, or the Western Insurrection, took place over a period of time. Years after the United States declared independence from Britain, the new government passed a bill on March 3rd, 1791, putting a new tax on distilled liquors. This tax led to years of rebellion from the grain farming population in Western Pennsylvania, who relied heavily on whiskey production for their livelihoods. What was the root cause of the rebellion? The Allegheny Mountains divided the western and eastern parts of Pennsylvania. Farmers, which made up the majority of the western population, relied on sales of their grain. However, there was often a limited market for it locally, and it was difficult to transport grain to the east for sale. The goods had to be transported back by pack horse over the mountains and along dirt roads, and the horses could only carry limited amounts at a time. Converting the grain to whiskey by the process of distillation made it more transportable and easier to sell. After the American Revolution, the United States government absorbed the debt from the former colonies, creating financial challenges for the new republic. In 1791, Congress approved a bill to put a tax on all distilled spirits. Many smaller producers struggled with the tax, while larger producers could more easily afford to pay the tax. First, the tax was based on the capacity of the still rather than the amount of whiskey produced. A still is the equipment that's part of the distillation process. Smaller operations produced less whiskey, but ended up paying higher taxes on every gallon, estimated at around 9 cents per gallon. That is almost $3 a gallon in today's value, which made the tax almost comparable to the price of gas today, which we're stopping here. But just remember, if you've ever heard anybody complain about a gas tax or why gas is so expensive, here's how it relates, kids. The large producers had fewer costs to get their goods to market and could afford to increase their volume of production. The more whiskey produced, the less tax these producers had to pay for every gallon. Some larger producers owed around 6 cents per gallon, which is about $2 today. Furthermore, the tax had to be paid in gold and silver coins, which Westerners rarely used. Western Pennsylvanians more commonly used whiskey itself as a currency to pay for their goods and services. The farmers already had a strained relationship with the government concerning how to handle attacks from indigenous groups. The farmers felt that the tax was unfair interference into their business and their rights were being encroached upon. An organized resistance to the collection of the excise tax began with a meeting held at Redstone Old Fort in July 1791. Many of the Westerners refused to pay the tax. Those sent to collect the tax were often ambushed or humiliated, and some were even tarred and feathered. Violence continued to escalate and spread to other counties over the next few years. In 1792, President George Washington issued a proclamation condemning rebellions against United States law. However, tensions continued. Despite calls for a peaceful resolution, a rebel militia gathered at Braddock's Field in western Pennsylvania in July of 1794. On August 7th, 1794, the president issued another proclamation calling for the rebels to disperse and return to their homes. Washington also invoked the Militia Act of 1792, which allowed the president to use state military or militiamen to stop the rebellion. Approximately 13,000 militiamen from surrounding states marched with Washington to put down the rebellion. While no real battle ensued, about 150 rebels were arrested. Most were released due to lack of evidence, and 2 were convicted of treason but later pardoned. Why was this rebellion significant in our history? The Whiskey Rebellion was the first test of federal authority in the United States. This rebellion enforced the idea that the new government had the right to levy a particular tax that would affect citizens in all states. It also enforced the idea that this new government had the right to pass and enforce laws impacting all states. So, here is why this is all important, other than the obvious presidential action. One, it's one thing to create a constitution, like creating how our government works, saying that the president can be the commander in chief of the army. It's another thing to actually put it in practice. This is why Washington's administration and learning about what he did as president is so important, because everything that he did as president, it was the first time any president had ever done it. Whether that is putting down the Whiskey Rebellion, appointing people to his administration, which is also an interesting story, or making speeches in the Senate. Anything that Washington did was number one. So that's the Whiskey Rebellion. Tomorrow, you'll have an option to learn about more about Washington. Good luck in the test.